Hello everyone, it is Aussie's Elect here back with another video, and today I am joined here with Duma.
Hi, Duma. Good to be here. Good to be here. Looking forward to discussing some stuff.
So basically what this video is going to be about is the state of play at the moment with the how the um, federal election 2022 is looking at the moment. Um, Once again, we've got here the the Parliament as it stands at the moment. Um, but we'll also be talking about some other things like the betting markets, and then just general like sort of news stories that are going on lately. So I'm just on Twitter at the moment, as you do, and there's a lot of talk today about this trains thing. Do you think there's gonna do you think there's gonna mean anything like this trains dispute?
Look, I don't read Twitter, so I don't know what's being
No,
talked
no,
about
it's
on
just the
Twitter.
news today, like
Oh well,
with the trains.
uh, this is the first time I'm hearing about trains, to be
Oh,
honest.
okay, right. Well, like there's a bit of um, an argument about whose fault it was that the trains have shut down. Is it the union's fault? Is it the New South Wales state government's fault?
Oh,
And
it's a New South Wales thing.
yeah, it's a New South Wales thing. But like Scott Morrison had
Because
a
that was going to be my first question. Where was this taking
no,
place?
but Scott Morrison
Because
has
you
yeah,
just
it's
started
in
to
New
talk
South
about
Wales. But Scott
trains.
Morrison is has been had like some commentary on it. And he's complaining about the unions. And he's talking about if Labor gets in, this is gonna be what it's gonna be like. Um, yeah, and there's also Tim Wilson trending on Twitter. I don't know what's going on with him. Anyway, um, basically, I just want to talk in this video about stuff like China. So we've been seeing the last couple of weeks. There's been this ramping up of talk about how Labor is cushy with China. Um, what do you reckon, Dooms? Like, we did actually record a video about a week ago. I think it was on Valentine's Day, but then I fucked up the audio. So, but I'll ask you here, what's your opinion on the China situation now that it's been a bit of time? We've had like a lot of commentary from both like Malcolm Turnbull and the Asia guy, and people on Q&A and stuff like that. Like, do you think it will play well, or do you think it will be played
Right.
badly for the
Well,
coalition?
well, let's start off with that watermelon salesman Turnbull for a second. Listen. Turnbull has money in China. He's a businessman, he has money in a lot of places. So he's always going to be pissy at Morrison's actions on China because, well, one, he's obviously still pissy that Morrison took his job. And two, he doesn't want nobody messing with his pay pig. So that's why Turnbull's a bit upset. Look, I don't know much about the ASIO guy other than he glows in the dark, so he shouldn't be trusted. So I'll disregard anything he has to say. And I don't watch Q&A because the ABC's a load of bullshit, but I imagine it's just China seems sad that ScoMo's messing with Daddy Shi.
All right, but what I'm asking is like the general voter, like how is it going to affect? Because the polls, I know you don't believe in the polls, but they have been
You
pointing
damn right.
to. Sorry?
You damn right.
Yeah, you don't believe in the polls, but they have been pointing to the government not really getting a bounce off of this stuff, and in fact, Scott Morrison's approval rating is being hit. Do you think that that's bullshit, or do you think that like that the China stuff is backfiring on
That's
Morrison?
that's that's bullshit. What? I'm supposed to believe that the Australian citizen simps for China?
Do you think that it's going to be a helpful issue for the Morrison government, or do you think it's going to be detrimental for them?
I think it'll be helpful. I think a lot of people have become more conscious about China and the issues related with China. And I would, in general, think that the average Australian probably has a very poor view of China due to their actions in the last few years. And I think it's something that would be helping Morrison to try and look tough on what is becoming an issue that people are more and more conscious about.
Do you think that the opinion polls are wrong? Do you think that they're not really taking in the true opinions uh, of the public about this issue?
Of course, if they couldn't, the opinion polls couldn't predict jack shit about 2019. So why should I be trusting them here? Like, as I'm being as blunt as possible when I say that, I have no reason to trust the opinion polls, and I don't think anyone should be trusting them at this point.
Right, so yeah, I'm just going to quickly just look at the opinion polls. Now, there was some new, actually, just opinion polls dropped very recently. There was an essential poll, a Roy Morgan poll, and a Resolve strategic poll. I'm not going to be looking at them too much because I'm going to make another video when the next news poll comes out, just talking about the polls and what they sort of mean for the election. Um, but yes, definitely the Labour Party has continued to sort of widen their gap in the last week or so, or at least some of these polls have gone towards Labor's favour. So it doesn't seem like this China rhetoric is really helping the coalition. But like perhaps it's to like sort of like sow the seeds for a later campaign, make people start talking about labor in China. And so also that if there is some kind of military conflict that comes about in the next couple of months, it will already be sort of a hot topic and it will already be like sort of burned into the public's eyes that the coalition thinks that Labor is weak on China. Um, do you think there's going to be some kind of like any military developments in the last couple of months which might save the coalition? Because I think that's what they're trying to bank on, right?
I mean, I don't think they're entirely banking on something happening. I think they are just pushing the issue because even without a military conflict happening, I think people are just in general conscious enough about China for it to be a big issue. That being said, I do think there is real potential for China to do something with Taiwan. Like, maybe not, I'm not saying China's definitely going to invade, but you could see more encroachments into Taiwan's space by China.
Right. Okay. Well, so do you think that that Scott Morrison has gone too far with his kind of rhetorics? You know, the Manchurian candidate and saying that Beijing's picked their man and he's elbow. Do you think it's gone too far, or do you think he's right on the money? This is going to win him
Look,
votes.
I think he's right on the money and should be pushing it even further.
Right. So don't stop now, Mr. ScoMo.
Yeah.
Make the election about China even more. So
I personally think he should even be leaning more into the origins of COVID-19 and pinning the blame on China for the pandemic. Personally,
yeah, well, he already started doing that, and it's surprising why he hasn't sort of brought that up again yet. Like
Hmm.
I don't know, like I don't know what the plan is, but it's pretty clear that over the next couple of months, the coalition are going to be focusing on two things. The first one is China, as we discussed, and the second is the economic recovery. Um, so there's the big unemployment rate at the moment. It's like is hovering around 4%, which is pretty low, and I would expect that Josh Frydenberg is going to be using that as a one of the measures that he can say, look at how well we're doing with the economy, despite the fact that when it comes to the unemployment rate, it's not a surprise that it's low because we have no fucking immigration at the moment, and the borders have only just opened to tourists. So, like there'll be numbers fudged. So the betting markets do have the Labour Party winning, coalition losing. When I looked at this last, they had the coalition at odds 1 to 3 or 1 to 3.1, and now they're in slightly to 1 to 2.95 for some reason. I don't exactly know what prompted that, but it gives them about a third chance to win the election, maybe like a bit higher, maybe like 35% chance to win the election. Do you think that's correct, Duma, or do you think that they should be given more credit than that?
I still think they should be giving more credit. I don't, don't entirely know how the betting markets are making their odds, but I imagine they are probably following polling very closely, and I think anyone following polling is making a mistake. So I think there will obviously be a bit of difference, and I do think this election will ultimately be very close, and things will likely tighten as we get closer to the actual election.
Right, and so do you have any sort of confidence in the polling, or the betting markets, or any kind of way to predict the election, or do you think it's all just nonsense?
Conventional wisdom would suggest the betting market will probably be more trustworthy because they actually have money riding on being right. But again, depending where they're getting what they're basing their odds off is a big deciding factor in that. As I said earlier, I don't think the polling industry deserves any trust from anyone at this point. I don't have any faith that they've made corrections to their errors that were made in 2019. So I ultimately think it's very hard to actually predict um, who's what's going to happen this election because there is a drought of trustworthy sources, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like a lot of pollsters, there was supposed to be an effort since the 2019 election to make the polling more transparent. But it's just it doesn't seem to have happened. At least like I've seen Kevin Bonham and William Bowe talk about this, where um, it's just been a bit disappointing how they've sort of returned to their same level of sort of opaqueness when it comes to uh, how these opinion polls are calculated. Look, I do believe that the polls are probably more accurate than they were last election because there obviously was back at the right at the start of this term in government an adjustment made for trying to get in more unengaged voters into the system. Um, and we can see that by the first news poll had the coalition ahead around about I think it was like 53-47 or something, or it was sort of on a similar level to how they won.
Yeah, but how do you know that that's actually what's happened? Like, because again, like you said, there has not been that increase in transparency, and like that kind of rhetoric is the exact same thing we heard in the US, where after 2016, all the pollsters were saying, "Well, don't worry, we'll be right next time. We're fixing all our mistakes." But they were again off the mark in both the 2018 midterms and 2020 election. So I think the Australian polling industries are likely making the same mistake, and I would be asking, how do you know that they made this account for uninformed voters? Like, how do you actually know that they did do anything like that to get accurate
All
results?
right, all right. Let's move on to a topic about the small L independents. And I want to go back to the betting sites here and take a look at some of the seats where these small L independents are looking like they want uh, to achieve a blue ribbon seat win against all odds. Firstly, I just want to talk about Benelong for a second, actually, because this has come in a little bit, I believe, um, due to some of the anti-China rhetoric. Um, uh, this seat, as well as they're thinking about banks as well, which is here, which is sort of I probably think maybe have like come in a little bit for the Labour Party. They have a better chance than they did a week ago. Um, but because of this anti-China rhetoric, they're thinking some of the sort of more like Chinese dominated seats will be better off for Labour. There's also Reid, but this I don't think this has changed at all. Um, what do you think about this China seats thing, Duma? Do you think the Chinese are gonna turn on the Morrison government?
Well, I guess it will ultimately come down to how many of these Chinese voters still hold loyalty to China. There's probably a lot of Chinese voters who left China because they were unhappy with how their country is. So there's honestly probably quite a number of Chinese voters who this kind of rhetoric would resonate with because they know all too well what China's like. Although, on the other hand, there will still be a lot of Chinese voters who may have moved to Australia for one reason or another, but still have a lot of loyalty of their homeland. So I guess it will come down to the question of, are Chinese voters on average more loyal to China, or do they hold misgivings about China, and that is possibly why they've come to Australia?
Yes, of course. Right. So what do you believe? Like, what's the vibe that you get out of those two options?
Um, it's hard to tell. I wish we had some accurate polling so that could maybe be polled. Um,
Well, I mean,
I
but you wish we had some accurate polling, but you don't trust. If there was polling, you would never trust it, right?
No, if polling came along and actually, you know, was scientifically made, didn't have dumb questions on it, was transparent, had proper sampling, and had some form of track record, I'd at least be willing to trust it. We just don't have any polling like that. That's the problem.
Right. All right. So yeah, let's look at some of these seats. Well, we got Wentworth here, um, uh, where this is I think what's her name is like Allegra Spender or something. She was on like Q&A last week. Um,
I don't think Shams is in any trouble here in Wentworth. I think he's more established. He's recently got himself credit with small L liberal voters.
because of
I
the
don't think he
religious,
has any.
yeah, him voting against that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
so I don't think he's in any danger.
yeah. Well, there is talk with. I think like going back to oh yeah, the Morrison attempting to derail AGL takeover. They're thinking that perhaps some of these small independents are gonna get in some trouble because of this. Um, they're trying to stop a takeover of AGL, which is going to probably lead to more investment in renewables, less investment in coal. Um, so like there was the whole drama with Zali Steggall that happened, where she's taken the money from some coal billionaire or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
Woodall Sally's not so innocent.
yeah,
He
but like just like on Q&A last week, they were talking about was it Q&A? I'm not sure, but they were talking about how the New South Wales Liberal Party is having these like factional issues, and that's sort of distracted from any sort of counterattack that they could have laid on Zali Steggall. Obviously the Murdoch media had their day in the limelight talking about it, but like they weren't able to sort of capitalize on it because they don't currently have like a someone lined up to face her in Warringah. Um, yeah,
This whole police selection thing seems very unorganized. But that is what you get. That's what you get when you leave candidate selection up to party black brokers.
you reckon you
It's one
reckon
thing I
you
can
reckon
be.
ScoMo should just pick the candidates himself?
Uh, Probably wouldn't do a worse job than these power brokers currently are.
Well, I'm honestly like I feel like the Liberal Party owes a lot to ScoMo after the 2019 election. Like he basically won them the election like single-handedly. So
Yeah,
I
no, he did. For all Morrison's flaws, he has generally carried the party. He's been consistently fairly popular, even though the Libs have, as a party, have not been a particularly popular
yeah,
party
that's
during
right.
his
That's
term.
right. Like at the moment, like with the Liberals being so behind in the polls, which is like it's like 10 points or more, but Morrison being still the favourite in terms of preferred prime minister by between 5 and 10 points, like that is sort of unprecedented. So it's very clear that that Morrison, despite the fact that he even has like not a very good approval rating at the moment, but people still see him as like prime ministerial, which we'll talk a little bit about later. But honestly, I feel like the Liberal Party should just hand everything to Morrison. Like, just get Morrison to do everything because the guy is clearly he's a genius. The guy is clearly a genius.
I would say he's at least more competent than most of the
He no,
people in the
he's
Liberal.
he's fucking intelligent. All right, this is something I agree with completely with Jordan Shanks, friendly Geordies. I know you don't like him, but he's right about this. Scott Morrison is a very very smart guy, and I think everything should be left to him because he's not only is he brilliant at electioneering, he also seems to have unlimited energy. He never gets tired of it.
I'm
So,
very surprised to hear that Friendly Geordies is actually making a smart point. That's probably the first and only time he's ever done that.
all right. So yeah, so these small L seats, we've got Wentworth, Warringah. The independent is still massively like the favourite, um, and then we've got like North Sydney up here, where the independent is looking kind of scary. Um, I don't think there's much more for New South Wales, but if we go down to Victoria, there's a couple of seats.
I
Kooyong,
actually wanted to bring that up for a sec.
yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, yeah, Frydenberg has nothing to worry about there. because it actually just came out that he's massively outperforming Morrison with women voters.
Yeah, yeah.
So that holds any truth.
He's also putting advertisements on WeChat, so he's clearly trying to spend his way to victory in Kuyong.
Mm.
So I mean, we got seat. I don't want to talk about this too much because it's not really on topic. But yeah, like the seat of Latrobe is still looking like sort of close. Um, but we go down to the seat of Flinders. Um, it's got like a coalition and an independent on equal there for some reason. I don't know why. I know that's Greg Hunt's seat and he's retiring, but I don't exactly know why. Um, that is Higgins. Higgins is weird because like um, Labour is at odds 1 to 7, but in 2019 the two-party preferred was between the coalition and Labour, and at the moment it looks like Labour's getting a big jump in the primary vote. So I don't know why Labour is not sort of more of a favourite in Higgins. I don't know, but I mean there's an independent, there as another option. Um, but another seat is Goldstein. This is Tim Wilson's seat. Um, and this is, I think this is one that they're sort of worried about, like coalition of 1.5, 2.4. All right, so what do you think? What do you think, Duma? Do you think that all these coalition MPs and these blue ribbon seats? I think I can look at WA, look at Curtin if I want to too, which is Julie Bishop's old seat. Do you think they got anything to worry about, or do you think it's all a bunch of hoo ha? It's not all not going to lead to anything. What do you reckon?
Look, I definitely think it's a bunch of hoo-ha. I don't really see many, if any, of these independents picking up seats. Um, I I think the issues they're pushing aren't really in touch with like what the voter actually cares about this election cycle. Like, look, I hate to say it, but I really don't think many average voters out there are really concerned about what these independents are talking about.
So when it comes to like the issue of climate change, that is an issue that you believe that is once again overblown. Like a lot of people said it was overblown in the 2019 election, and do you think it's also going to be overblown for this election as well?
Oh, more so. 2019 it was genuinely one of the bigger issues. Now, ultimately, it proved to be that voters cared about it in a different way than the media was predicting, but it still was a big issue nevertheless. I just don't see it at all being a major issue this election cycle. I think pretty much everyone who is going in with climate change as like their big deciding issue is someone who has already made up their mind and was never going to be a winnable voter at this cycle. I think again the average voter has bigger issues that they're concerned about than climate change in this particular cycle. This is a bit of a weird cycle. People have to keep that in mind.
But don't you think with like the G20 summit and Biden becoming president of the United States, that there is sort of a bit more of a push, and it's a bit more kind of like trendy than it was in
No, but, but,
2019 to
but,
be
but
like pro sort of anti-fossil
not
fuels?
at all. Not at all. Tell me what Australian voter is particularly concerned about what the G20 has to say? Like, do you think your average working class voter like gives two hoots about what the G20 does? Like,
I mean, I mean, I don't know. I just think that there's a little bit more of a push, at least a little bit more of a push than there was in the 2019 election. I don't think it's going to be a huge issue, but I think that it's going to be like somewhat of an issue. I mean, it really just depends on if these independents are going to capitalize on it.
I think you gotta stop reading the ABC, man. I think that's your problem.
Well, I don't know. Maybe these independents will get nowhere if everything goes the way you say it is. These independents will get absolutely nowhere because it is mainly climate change that they're running on. Um, action on climate change, and this is how they're being. Oh, we just like the coalition, except we actually care about climate change. That's sort of like their thing.
And agree
Um,
with everything Labour says, oddly enough.
well, all right. But yeah, so I guess like if you were a betting man, Dooms, you might want to put some money on the coalition for some of these seats because you can get some free money. Like
Yeah, I'll see how things play out with the bet I've placed on a Biden Supreme Court pick. If I make some money off that, I might invest some of it into betting on uh, Australian politics.
what I want to talk about next is third parties. Dooms, how do you think that the One Nation Party and the United Australia Party are going to go this election?
Look, I'm pulling for those two parties. I'm personally, as someone who is on the right and doesn't exactly like the Liberal Party, I sort of don't have a lot of optimism that minor right-wing parties will do good either. But just gotta wait and see. I think One Nation has a decent chance because they are established. I just don't really trust that they have a good long-term strategy to grow their supporter base. And as for United Australia, I just don't know if their message is resonating with voters and if it's actually going to turn
I,
into
I
them
think
getting it.
I think it is to a degree. Like I saw some like essential polls that had the UAP on a couple of percentage. Um, so like it was like 3% or something like that. So I think that it is somewhat resonating with people. Um, and then Pauline Hanson is polling about 3, 4, 5%. So I think there is some interest. I love it. The Greens forever flat, forever flat. They're just going to stay 10% for like until the end of time. They never change. They're not getting any more votes. They're not
It's the
getting
one
any letters.
constant. We'll have a nuclear war and the Greens will still be getting 10% of the vote.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, but yeah. So yeah, like so you think uh, Pauline Hanson probably will win her Senate seat back in Queensland, um, but I don't think the UAP are really going to get anywhere in the House or the Senate. Um, what do you reckon? You reckon they're going to, help the coalition again this time to deliver them victory?
Well, I imagine they will likely direct preferences to the coalition because the coalition's, at the end of the day, is going to be closer to what they want than Labour is. Um, I imagine there probably would be a lot of pissed off people who lean towards the right who will probably vote for One Nation or the UAP. So, that could end up directing those votes back to the coalition.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people, instead of like their protest vote being voting for Labour, their protest vote will be for either One Nation or UAP or both, and then
Yeah,
they'll
I could see that being the case.
just end up being like, all right, well, I voted for this other party. I've given the fuck you to the libs. Now I'm going to put them, you know, second last, but I'm putting Labour last, or I'm putting the Green.
Pretty much what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah.
Just,
So like, so people will get their sort of protest vote out of the system, but it still won't mean a vote for Labor. So I think that's definitely going to be the case in the lower house, and that will probably help the coalition in the lower house. But it'll probably hurt them a little bit in the upper house because it's not compulsory preferential voting there, and there's a very good chance that people could vote for Pauline Hanson or the UAP, and then just not put the coalition anywhere in their top like six. So yeah, I honestly think that this what you see on screen right now is my prediction for the Senate after this election. I think Queensland is the only real state where it's going to really matter. All this like minor party shenanigans, um, and it's just going to probably deliver um, the coalition only 2 seats out of 6, which is a pretty shocking result for them. But yeah, I don't know. Like Scott Morrison, like he does appeal to the Queenslander. The Queenslanders do like him, but I just think they don't like him enough these days to help him get that third seat. So let's talk a little bit about Scotty and Albanese. Um,
on yes, funny.
like this election will come down to basically how well Scott Morrison can campaign. He did very well in 2019. Um, it will come down to how well he can. I mean, like I don't even know what his agenda is though. Like, do you know what the coalition's policy agenda is? Do you have any idea?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. No, like
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you what going forward
So,
their
so at
grand
the
policy
moment,
agenda is.
what it's looking like is basically just a complete like scare campaign on Labor, and then basically no policy from the coalition. Like they had a little bit of
I I
policy.
f- I think very much that is their game plan to just survive this election and then figure it out from there if they get back in.
Yeah, because like last election they did have a couple of like it wasn't very much. They did have a couple of policy. The policies were mainly tax cuts, the religious discrimination stuff, and like the federal ICAC. Um,
mm,
Now that like they'll probably take 2 of those 3 policies back to the election. They've already done the tax cuts. Um, but like we don't really know what their policies are. Like, and they're just basically just attacking labor at the moment. Like, I don't know. Do you think that's going to be an effective strategy?
I mean, I think it will just because I think this election cycle does lend it to that being an effective strategy.
Right. Well, and is that because like people are worried about China and they're worried about
Well,
war?
it's because we are in very uncertain times with like China, as you've mentioned, but more importantly, like moving on from COVID and what's the economy looking like going forward, and are we still going to have constant lockdowns if cases get too high? What are restrictions going to be like going forward? That kind of stuff. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people are feeling uncertain with the direction of the country at the moment.
And I think when a lot of people look back at like Morrison's time in government for these past 3 years, they can acknowledge that he did some stuff ups, but like for the most part, like the country's still standing. Like people did die, but not as many people as like what happened in the UK or the US or many other countries. So
Yeah, and Morrison will use that to his advantage. I
yeah,
expect him to constantly be comparing Australia's performance to other countries during the
yeah,
pandemic.
and so because he got this sort of like this C plus in terms of his grade on coronavirus, that's gonna be like his badge of honor for what will be probably more an even more or the same amount of like turmoil in the next couple of years with what happens with
Mm.
China and Russia, and in case like more another COVID variant comes around, stick with the devil rather than going to someone who's untested. They're really painting Albanese as like he doesn't have any experience. You don't know you don't know what you're getting with him. He's going to be as left wing or even more left wing than Gough Whitlam. They're really trying to say that this guy is you don't know about him. You know what will happen with us. We didn't get everything right, but like we were all right. We were okay. We're not too bad, and I think it's going to be an effective strategy. And
So will I. I think combine that with the fact that Morrison is a very good campaigner, I think it gives him a good shot. And it also helps that his opponent is Albanese, who, in my opinion, is not a very good leader, nor is he a particularly outstanding campaigner.
Yeah, so last week there was the Four Corners special about Anthony Albanese, but they asked a lot of like sort of uncertain voters what their opinions of him, and most they had a very sort of similar opinion of him, which is they didn't really know who he was, they didn't really know what he stands for, and they're not like they don't know like what his policies are. Um, which I mean, it is interesting because like there seems to be like this like a lot of interest about like what Labor's policies are, and no real interest about what the coalition's policies are. Like nobody cares that the coalition has no policies, but it really matters for Labor. I think it's because
Well, I think it's because they're used to the coalition at this point.
yeah, well, they're used to the coalition having no policies, and they're used to Labor having policies, but then those policies not necessarily being liked. And then you stick with coalition if Labor's policies are shit, but if Labor's policies are good, then you vote for Labor, I guess. So if you just can't risk it, you just stick with the coalition. They're like a safe bet or something. Is that how people see the coalition?
I could see that being the case.
Because I mean, they really are the status quo party these days. The coalition, like it's pretty much vote for us and we'll keep everything the same for the next 3 years. Like that's basically their uh their their branding these days. But Anthony Albanese is seen as not very charismatic.
Albanese to me never came into his own as opposition leader. Like to me, he never got out of the whole. Like I think he's still sort of seen as like the guy who complains when Scott Morrison announces something, and like that's it. Like he doesn't have a particularly standout personality. He's not a particularly charismatic guy. So I think he's never truly come into his own as like someone that people recognize as, oh, he's Anthony Albanese, oh, he thinks this and this, oh, he might be good to vote for. He's just the waiver guy who complains when Morrison says something.
So what do you think he can do to sort of improve his chances?
Can you learn how to be charismatic?
No, I don't think so. I think it's you are charismatic or you're not. Like I think
Oh, well, then
like
he's screwed.
so. Do you think that he's gonna lose the election based on charisma alone?
No, not alone, but I do think it would help him if he had a bit more charisma. Like, I
Right.
don't think it helps him being like this. Maybe work on the nasal voice as well, but that's
Yeah, I
maybe
don't
something
think
to
that's
do.
possible. Like, someone with a nasally voice, like I'd like to get rid of it, but I have no idea how I'm supposed to do that. So Scott Morrison, he's been sort of slammed as like a liar and a hypocrite and a horrible person, a psycho, all this kind of stuff. Do you think he can recover from this image?
Absolutely. I mean, what politician hasn't been called that
So you
and
just
still
think
got
it's
an
it's
election?
normal, run of the mill. People kind of expect that from a coalition, from a politician.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, fuck it, how many politicians have been called that going into an election and still won?
Oh, I don't know. You tell me.
People were calling Joe Biden a pedophile going into the election, and we're supposed to believe he got the most votes out of any U.S. president.
Yeah, well, that's correct. So yeah, you don't think it will matter because ScoMo's got a good style, good campaigning style. He's able to claw things back.
Yeah, look, he clawed back what should have been, by all means, a lost election in 2019. I think if anyone can pull it off again, it's this guy. Whether he can remains to be seen, but I think he does have a fighting chance that people underestimate.
All right, Doomer, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you for joining me today for this little weird video. We'll probably do another update in maybe a month or so's time and see what's changed. Um,
I look forward to it.
Goodbye, everyone from Aussies Elect, and I will be doing a video when the new news poll comes out, just looking at the polls and seeing how that changes my prediction, if at all. So, see you then.